Ta-da!
Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in lovely Lund, Sweden. For today's episode of A Few Simple Steps, we will be making kit cards for games of Regiment of Renown. Now if you're not familiar with it, a few years ago Warhammer World had a tournament and they released this packet. In this packet they gave you not only the rules for playing small skirmish games, how to set up your war bands and so forth, but they also gave you a list of different kit. Different items that you could give to your dogs of war or to your leader in your war band. Now these are great, there's a lot of description there, but as you can see there are a lot of different items and kit that you can use. And I found that in playing Regiment of Renown games it gets sometimes a little bit confusing and it's hard to remember who has what, so on and so forth, especially if you're playing many games back to back. So what we decided to do today is to take that list or that group of kit and turn them into individual kit cards that you can then assign to each one of your dogs of war. Now in many ways this is probably the simplest, a few simple steps that we have done yet, but it's been one of the most useful in the way that has helped me with my own Regiment of Renown games. So let's go ahead, before we show you the specific steps, let's show you just briefly how some of these cards can look.
Okay, just a brief look at what we are shooting for with this project today. Let me dump these out. I have a whole pile of these different kit cards. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. I made two sets here so that I could have one for both sides, each of the sides that is playing the Regiment of Renown game. But basically you can see they're fairly small and they're reinforced with good cardboard on the back. Nice designs. I'll explain how we got these designs in a second. But here you go, that's basically how they look and they are very functional. Let's go ahead and show you the steps for how to make them. Now because this is such a simple project, there are not many supplies that you are going to need. Of course, first of all you'll need to print off the Warhammer Regiment of Renown event pack, and specifically we will be using the pages here in which we have the list of the kit that you can give to your dogs of war. Once we have that, you'll have to go find some nice cardstock, and this is really important. It's good that your cardstock is white or even sort of grayish or dark on one side with no writing or anything that might bleed through into your paper and your note cards. If you're like me, you have a lot of these old Warhammer boxes lying around. Let's get it the right way. And these are really going to be excellent cardstock for what we're doing here. And not only that, but then when we cut it out, you'll have maybe some of these interesting pictures and patterns on the back side of your cards, which might give it a nice little Warhammer feel to it. And last, of course, you're just going to use a simple glue stick to glue everything down. Well, let's go ahead and show you the steps for how to pull this off. Okay, to get started now, we will just go ahead and trim around these cards and leaving just a little bit on the outside that we can then use to cut around later when we attach it to the cardstock. I mean, we don't want to have too much excess here because we don't want to waste any glue. It'll be nice to have it a little bit smaller so we can fit it nicely onto our cardstock. So there we have everything trimmed up, and you see we left just a little bit, maybe a few millimeters here on the side, so that we can then go ahead and trim right around the cards when we get glued onto the cardstock. Alright, the next step now is to go ahead and take our cardstock, and we can take this out and we'll just cut out a nice piece that is larger than the piece of paper that we have cut, so that we can then go ahead and glue that down. And here we have now the cardstock all cut up. I'm actually going to make two sets of cards, so I decided to go ahead and use the same box and just cut that into two pieces there. So I want to just make sure that I have the right side sticking up so I can get the picture in the right way with the cards facing upwards. And then the next step is to just go ahead and glue these down. A little reminder here, it is always good to have an extra piece of paper underneath so you can then go ahead and really get the glue on the edges without worrying about getting it down on your work surface here. Go ahead now and just apply a lot of glue. Don't be afraid to use a lot. What you don't want is to have some spots that you miss, because you can see here the cards might not have enough glue on them on all their edges, and you really want to make sure that all the edges of the cards stick. So go ahead and apply this thing with plenty of glue and then stick it onto your cardboard. And one more quick tip about technique that I learned during my time as a bookbinder is when you have this all finished up then, what you want to do is be very careful that you get one side down when you're applying it to your cardboard and then move across, roll it down onto that paper. And as you roll it, then smoothen it out so you don't get any bubbles in the paper. The worst thing you could have here is that you get this all ready to go, you put it down, and then you have bubbles in your cards. So you want to smoothen it out, push all those bubbles out, make sure it's really flat, and when you get everything set and flat, no bubbles, then go ahead and put some books on top of it, add some weight to it right away, and allow the glue to set. With our papers now glued to the cardstock, we have put one paper here and one paper here, and we've loaded it up with heavy books, both figuratively and literally speaking. Heavy books that will give us some good weight. And what we'll do now is we'll just leave this to sit overnight so that it can really take hold with the glue, and we can go ahead and cut out our cards in the morning. Good morning, it is the next day and this thing has sat overnight. Let's go ahead and now take a look at our little cards and see how they have done. Pull away these books, and here is our first one. Oh, that looks really good. It looks like the glue has set, no bubbling. We got a nice back. And our second one. Excellent. No sticking to the books, no sticking to the workspace. Looks really good. The step we need to do now is go ahead and cut around very carefully each one of these cards. Here now are the kit cards all cut out, and they really turned out nicely. You can see here that's some good solid cardstock. What I really like though was that we put this on the Warhammer boxes, so if you flip these around, they have just really cool looking pictures on the back. So it's not just cards with all the information we need we can put with our figurines, but we have really cool looking backs. Let me go ahead and turn all around and show you how it looks when they are all flipped around. And here are the cards flipped around showing their back sides. Some of them were more or less good. This one didn't quite work out in its placement, but other of them did really well. For example, this one you got a great shot of that archer. I really like this one I already showed you with this battle scene. Here we have a picture of the Emperor. So these are really great, nice looking cards, good backs. I'm excited to put them in play and see how they work. I'll go ahead and show you some pictures of that before we wrap up this few simple steps.
Well, there you have it, folks. A few simple steps for making Regiment of Renown kit cards. Thank you for joining us today here at Grey Army Gaming, where Grey can always play.